ever spoke in front of high school students, and believe it or not, y'all are a very intimidating audience, especially for adults who it's been a number of years since any of us were in high school, and it's intimidating. I've done it a few more times. I will tell you though, usually we play this video at the beginning, and it never gets easier for me. You know, I'm not feeling quite so today, but you know, when Ethan starts talking about the children and about what he remembers holding that little boy and pulling the glass out of the girl's eyes, every time I hear that, it makes my eyes well up. And, you know, here I am. I was somebody who was in the military for 5 years. I was a sergeant, you know. I was trained to be desensitized to this kind of thing. But there's something about the image of children caught in the middle of something like that that just wrecks me every time. And even wrecked me when I was in the military because, as James said and as Ethan said, while this video may be shocking, it's nothing out of the ordinary for the people of Iraq and Afghanistan. We heard one of the sergeants in the helicopter say something to the effect of, well, it was their fault for bringing their kids onto a battlefield, right? Well, the reality is we have taken our battlefields and put them down on top of people's neighborhoods. And while, you know, American government officials may stand up and make statements about, well, the problem is the men we're hunting are hiding behind children and hiding behind women and hiding. We can see that they have families and they have children and they have neighborhoods. And that when you bring a battle and you put it down in the middle of an environment like that, you're going to produce what the military calls collateral damage. And what WikiLeaks and what we call collateral murder, because that's what it is. I joined the military when I was 18 years old. That was about 10 years ago now. I joined the military as a means of escape. And it's been a long time for me to be able to say that, but I joined the military as a means of escape. I was 18. I was homeless. I was kicked out of my house the day after I graduated high school. I was literally living in a tent in the woods. And it's very strange to look back at that situation and think I would have been better off just staying in that tent in the woods. Because I seemed like the perfect candidate for the military, you know. I was like, you know, first of all, there was that whole situation. You know, I was about to starve and I needed to put food in my belly. But beyond that, the military seemed very appealing to me, specifically because, well, I was a rather thin guy in high school, even more so than I am now. And, you know, I got messed around quite a bit. I was always seemed to be the butt of people's jokes. I was a nice young man, so it was very easy. I often became the victim of my peers. And I was so sick of it. Half of me wanted to join the Army just because I thought the Army would make me hardcore. And if I joined the Army, that, you know, nobody would ever mess with me again because they would turn me into a man. They would teach me to be violent. They would exercise my body. I would get larger. I would become a force to be reckoned with. I would be hardcore. And in many ways, looking back now, that's what did it for me in the military. Is I was a young man looking for an experience that would make me a man. And I just didn't see that around me. I just didn't see that opportunity. And I thought that the military was going to give me that. Because, you know, that is something. I think a lot of young men especially have the idea that the U.S. military is a place for them to go and make men of themselves. And it's a very historic concept. And it's one that I fell victim to, and one that I have to say, you know, today I will tell you I am less of a man for having served in the U.S. military. I mean, I am less of a man for having gone into the military and having done those things. Because what the military boils down to is they package it in a lot of different ways to you. They say, you know, oh, we're a humanitarian force. We go all over the world to help people. We give health care to people who don't have health care. You know, but what it boils down to is the mission statement of the U.S. Army. And many of the other forces, I'm not sure, I was in the Army, I can speak for the Army, but the mission statement of the U.S. Army is to engage and destroy. To engage and destroy. The enemies of the U.S. in close combat is the full thing. But specifically, the mission is to engage and destroy. But they don't really advertise it this way, do they? They advertise it. I always see those pictures of, like, they're advertising for the National Guard, and there's a guy, like, in a helicopter helping a little white girl off of her roof after her home's been flooded, you know? Mm-hmm. There's nothing about, you know, engage and destroy, right? Well, this is what I experienced right away, and I was surprised because the military to me had been described as like Boy Scouts with guns. Just really serious Boy Scouts. You're going to go camping, you're going to be outdoors, you're going to be physical, but, you know, you have guns. And even then I thought, well, okay, cool. I'll use guns. That'll make me a man, right? And so, but I was very surprised when I got to just basic training and began to, you know, I didn't sign up to be an infantry guy like James. I signed up thinking I was going to get a skill. I signed up to be a journalist, as a combat documentarian, because I wanted to go in and out of combat and tell people stories and paint a bigger picture for the public. But even being a journalist, when I showed up in like the second day in basic training, there I am with a rifle and with a knife attached to the end of it, and I'm standing in front of a dummy dressed as an Iraqi civilian person. I'm stabbing this knife in and out of its chest, screaming, "Kill!" like at the top of my lungs. You know, very quickly this idea I had painted for me began to just fall apart. And suddenly here I was, this nice skinny kid from Alabama, and my drill sergeant's asking me what makes the green grass grow. And I'm screaming back at him, "Blood, blood, blood makes the green grass grow, drill sergeant." I'm sure you had the same experience. I mean, everybody, you know, they start to work in these sayings. You know, it was maybe the second week we started singing this song when we ran around. It went, "Napalm sticks to kids." Does anybody know what napalm is? It's like, it's liquid fire. They dropped it on people in Vietnam. It touches your skin and burns all the way to the bone. You know, and here I am, a journalist, trying to get a skill, learning that napalm sticks to kids, and that it's funny, and that it's something that should motivate us. You know, and then my entire experience throughout the military reflected that first week where they broke you down and they said, "We're going to build you back up from this point," and that point that they build you up from is kill. Kill, 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 and it becomes a mantra. It becomes to a point where you don't even say yes. If somebody says something to you, you just say, "Kill." And that's like the response. I mean, that's what it boils down to. But they won't tell you that. That's not the advertisement. The advertisement is money for college. The advertisement is, you know, respect from the people in your community or from your parents. These things, this video is not a good advertisement for the military. This is, in fact, what I consider a public secret in the United States, because everybody's heard about the honor. You know, everybody's heard about building nations and helping people around the world, but we don't see this because it's not good advertising for them. So, recruiters specifically, this program, we specifically want to talk about recruitment and the way in which the military needs young people to continue joining the military to make things like this possible. Because if people like me and James had said no from the get-go, things like this would have never happened. So, we spoke before. Somebody mentioned that they had, was it you who mentioned you had actually spoken to recruiters before? Or a Marine recruiter, and he said to you, what did he say?
He was like he kind of made it seem like that was the way to go. Like, you know, like, I wasn't good in school and I didn't want to go to college, so, you know, I just joined the military. And when I came out, I got myself that year car or whatever, like a Dodge Charger. Like, he made it sound like
flashy.
Wow, like, oh man, like I was supposed to go, oh man, sign me up right now, you know what I mean?
Well, did he talk to you about post-traumatic stress disorder?
No, he didn't.
Does anybody know what that is? Few people, post-traumatic stress disorder. It is a mental illness, and it's one that cripples veterans in this country. Myself, and I'm pretty sure James included. Post-traumatic stress disorder is a perfectly normal human response to a completely abnormal situation, such as seeing little children bleeding to death and knowing that your friends are the ones that shot them. Trauma like that. Yeah, absolutely.
I suffer from post-traumatic stress disorder. I take medication for post-traumatic stress disorder. I'm on 3 different medications. I also have mild traumatic brain injury where I suffer from memory loss, headaches, loud noises. I can't stand loud noises. Fast-moving objects, I get dizzy. I can't sit down for too long. I also go to physical therapy for my back, my ankles, my right knee, which when I walk, they crack. I have to be very careful at just even picking up a water jug off the street, or I could go back, be in the hospital for days for my back. I also suffer from something I can't really pronounce. It's called
agoraphobia.
Agoraphobia. Thank you. Where I can't be in social situations like this, but you know that's why I take medication. That's one of the things recruiters will tell you is the things you have to suffer to when you get out. And just to get my benefits, like you talk about, it was a lot of work just to even try to get help. And that's one of the main things that, and it's no joke, and that's what really hurts vets.
It really does. And even Ethan made a point of it. I thought it's one of the biggest, well, there's just so many enormous issues that are the result of war. And post-traumatic stress disorder is definitely one of those issues. One of the things that it underlies is what is now an absolute epidemic of suicides, both in the active duty military and among veterans like James and myself. In fact, we're part of the demographic in America that kills itself more than any other demographic out there. And you even, I think, heard Ethan during the video say, every day in Iraq, I prayed that somebody would take me out. That somebody would that an IED would go off and take me out and would end the pain that I was feeling. He prayed to die. You know, me, I remember the night before I got out of the military, I was in the military for 5 years. And all I could think about was college, you know, that was my one thing, college. And somebody asked about that, you know, technically if you manage to wait these enormous periods of time that they just can't seem to get it right, you can get money if you get the kind of discharge that they require you to get. And that is an honorable discharge, and that's not necessarily something you have control over, especially if you're somebody suffering from post-traumatic stress disorder and who are already acting irrationally. You can't necessarily control who you tell off, you know. You can't necessarily control your behavior in a way that guarantees you an honorable discharge. So you can go to Iraq 3 or 4 times, get kicked out of the military and have nothing but PTSD. I know a friend. I had a friend that I was very close with for a while. She went to Iraq twice.